Let me ask you something uncomfortable. At the beginning of this year, when the year was still new and the feeling of possibility was still strong, you had something in mind. Not necessarily a written plan, not necessarily a list of goals, but a feeling, a direction, a quiet internal sense that this year was going to be different, that you were going to show up for yourself differently, that the version of you who drifted through last year, who kept postponing the important things, who let the weeks stack up without anything really changing, that version was done. This year was going to be the one. Now I want you to sit with an honest question. Is that what happened? Or did the weeks start stacking up again? Did the old routines creep back in quietly? Did the version of this year you imagined in January start looking less like a plan and more like a wish that faded somewhere around February? If the answer is yes, I am not here to judge you. I am here to tell you something that most people do not hear until it is too late. The year is not over, not metaphorically, not in some motivational speech sense. There are real months left, real days, real time. Enough time to redirect, rebuild, and move towards something that actually matters. But only if you stop treating today like it doesn't count yet. That is the trap. That is the pattern that quietly steals entire years from people who had every intention of living them differently. They wait for a clean start that never comes. They treat direction as something you find in a single dramatic moment of clarity, rather than something you build through deliberate action, one day at a time. Viktor Frankl survived some of the most brutal conditions a human being can face, and what he kept observing around him was this: the people who stopped going were not always the weakest physically. They were the ones who lost their sense of direction, who could no longer connect what they were doing each day to any reason that mattered. He wrote that those who have a reason to live can bear almost any difficulty. Direction is not a luxury. It is not something to figure out after you have dealt with everything else. It is the thing that makes all the other efforts sustainable. Without it, you are simply surviving. With it, even the hard days have meaning. Today we are going to build that direction, not with a vague inspiration, but with 7 specific ruthless, Stoic principles that the greatest philosophical minds in history used to orient their lives with purpose. Principles that will ask something real of you. Some of them will feel good, some will be uncomfortable. That discomfort is the signal that something real is happening. Welcome to Master Your Mind, where ancient philosophy becomes practical mental strength. Let us begin. Rule 1. Stop waiting for clarity. Move first. Here is something that sounds simple, but that most people never fully absorb. Clarity does not arrive before you start moving. It is built by moving. Think about driving through heavy fog at night. When you are parked, you can see only a few feet in front of you. Everything beyond that is gray. You cannot see where the road bends. You cannot see where it opens up. And so most people decide, I will wait here until it clears. But the driver who actually gets somewhere understands something different. They know that the moment they ease forward, the headlights reveal more road. And as they keep moving, more and more of the path becomes visible. Not all of it, but enough to keep going. And enough is enough. Most people are parked in the fog of their own lives. Engine on, hands on the wheel, not moving, waiting for some grand sign, or some perfect moment of certainty before they take the first step. That moment rarely comes, and the waiting starts to feel normal, and then the waiting becomes the pattern. And suddenly years have passed and nothing has changed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The waiting is not powerlessness. The waiting is a choice, and it can be undone by making a different choice. The psychologist Barry Schwartz studied something he called the paradox of choice. His research found that when people are presented with too many options and no clear winner, they do not just take longer to decide, they often do not decide at all. Not because they are weak, because they are afraid of choosing wrong and losing the other options. So they keep all options open by choosing none of them. The Stoics had no patience for this. They understood that an uncommitted life, a life held in perpetual reservation, is not a life being protected. It is a life being wasted. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The waste he was describing was not the waste of entertainment or rest. It was the waste of perpetual preparation that never becomes action. Here is what you do not need in order to begin. You do not need a complete plan. You do not need certainty about the destination. You need one honest answer to one honest question. Which direction do I want my life to move in? Not what job, not what salary, not what the world considers successful. Which direction? Toward more creative work, toward better health, toward building something that belongs to you, toward mornings that feel less hollow. Pick a direction. Any direction that feels mostly right, not perfectly right, mostly. 60% certainty is enough to take the first step, and the first step reveals the second, and the second reveals the third. Every person who has ever built a purposeful life built it exactly this way. They moved before they were ready, adjusted when they learned something, and moved again. That is the entire process. There is no other version. The rule is this: act your way into understanding. You cannot think your way in. You cannot plan your way in. You can only move your way in. Take one real step today, not tomorrow. Today, send the message, make the call, show up to the thing you have been circling for months. One step, that is all the clarity you need to get started. Rule 2. Identify what is draining you before you add anything new. Here is something the motivation industry will almost never tell you. You cannot build a new life on top of a foundation that is quietly collapsing. We spend enormous amounts of time talking about what to add, what new habits to build, what goals to set, what routines to start, and some of that is genuinely useful. But most of the time, the real problem is not that people are missing the right additions. The problem is that they are losing energy through leaks they have never bothered to name. Think about your average week, not the highlights, the average. Where does your energy actually go? And more specifically, what are the things that consistently leave you feeling worse after engaging with them than you did before? Maybe it is a relationship that has quietly become one-sided. You give, they rarely show up. Maybe it is a job that is not just difficult, but meaningless in a way you have stopped letting yourself acknowledge. Maybe it is a social media habit that ends every single time with you feeling vaguely worse about your own life. Maybe it is the internal conversation you keep having with yourself, telling yourself you are behind, not doing enough, falling short, over and over, without resolution. These are not dramatic problems. They rarely feel like emergencies. That is exactly what makes them so damaging. They just feel like life, and so people carry them indefinitely, wondering why they never have the energy to build toward what they actually want. The psychologist Martin Seligman spent decades studying what he called flourishing, what allows human beings to genuinely thrive. One of his most consistent findings was that thriving is not just about adding positive experiences. It is equally about reducing what he described as the chronic low-level stresses that run quietly in the background of a person's life. The things that are not dramatic enough to fix immediately, but are just present enough to drain capacity over time. He called them energy vampires, and they are dangerous precisely because they are quiet. The Stoics addressed this principle directly. Epictetus taught that the first discipline is the discipline of desire, learning to distinguish between what you should be engaging with and what is consuming you without return. He wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Apply that principle to energy, not money, and it becomes one of the most practical insights in all of Stoic philosophy. Strength consists not in having enormous reserves of motivation, but in having fewer things that drain it without reason. Here is the practice. Take a piece of paper. Draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write down everything in your current life that consistently drains you, not things that are simply hard. Hard is fine. Hard can be growth. Things that drain you without giving anything back. Things that leave you smaller, not larger. On the right side, Write down what your life would look and feel like if those drains were reduced or removed. You do not have to eliminate everything on the left side today. Some of those things take time, but naming them is the first act of power you have over them. Because what you cannot name, you cannot address. And what you cannot address will keep draining you indefinitely. Before you add more motivation, subtract more weight. That is the correct order. And the Stoics knew it well. Rule 3. Build the identity first. The goals will follow. Most people approach their goals in a way that almost guarantees eventual failure. They pick a destination, write it down, get excited, and start. Then life gets busy, motivation drops, a setback arrives, and the goal quietly gets abandoned. And they call it a discipline problem. They tell themselves they just need to try harder next time. But the issue was never discipline. The issue was the order they were operating in. There is a powerful distinction between what we can call outcome-based thinking and identity-based thinking. Outcome-based thinking says, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to write a book. I want to save $10,000. These are destinations. They are valid, but they carry no information about who you need to become in order to reach them. And when the going gets hard, there is nothing anchoring you except the memory of the goal, which grows less and less motivating the further you are from the original burst of excitement. Identity-based thinking operates from a completely different foundation. Instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? You ask, who am I becoming? And then you ask, what does that person do today? Not next month. Not when circumstances improve. Today, the Stoics understood this distinction better than perhaps any school of philosophy before or since. Marcus Aurelius did not write the Meditations because he wanted to achieve certain outcomes. He wrote them because he was committed to becoming a certain kind of person. A person who acted with reason, with justice, with courage, with self-control. And he used the daily practice of self-examination to hold himself to that identity even when his position, his power, and his circumstances offered him every excuse to abandon it. He was not managing goals, he was building a character. And character, unlike goals, does not abandon you when the motivation fades, because it is not separate from you. It is you. Epictetus wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." The order matters enormously. First, who are you becoming? Define that with clarity. Then, what does that person do? Execute that, daily, without exception. Identity is built through what Epictetus called small, repeated actions that cast votes for the person you are choosing to become. Every morning you sit down and do the work before checking your phone. You cast a vote for being someone who takes their purpose seriously. Every time you go to the gym when you do not feel like it, you cast a vote for being someone who keeps the commitments they make to themselves. Every time you read instead of scrolling, you cast a vote for being someone who is still growing. No single vote is dramatic. No single vote is visible from the outside, but the accumulation of those votes over weeks and months produces something that goals alone never can. It produces a self-concept that is stable, a sense of who you are that does not collapse under pressure, because it was built under pressure, daily, incrementally through action rather than intention. Stop starting with what you want to achieve. Start with who you are becoming. Then let that identity drive everything else. The goals will follow. They always follow when the identity is solid. But no goal survives long without an identity beneath it strong enough to carry it through the hard days. Rule 4. Learn to stay in discomfort instead of escaping it. This is the rule most people want to skip. Pay close attention here, because what we are about to discuss is one of the most important and most consistently avoided principles in all of personal development. We are living in the most distraction-saturated era in the entire history of human civilization. Every single time an uncomfortable feeling arises, boredom, restlessness, anxiety, the quiet ache of not knowing what you want, there are dozens of mechanisms available to make that feeling disappear within seconds. Pick up the phone, open the app, start the show, order something, buy something. The discomfort is gone. for now. The problem is not just that these escapes consume time. The problem is that the information inside the discomfort, the genuine signal that was trying to reach you, never gets heard, and that signal will keep returning, over and over in different forms, getting slightly louder each time, until you finally sit with it long enough to understand what it is actually saying. Carl Jung spent his career studying the unconscious, the parts of the self that people tend to avoid looking at directly. He described what he called the shadow. Not a metaphor for evil, but simply the collection of thoughts, fears, desires, and truths that people push down because facing them feels too uncomfortable. And his central argument about the shadow was this: the energy a person spends suppressing what they do not want to face is energy that cannot be used for anything else. The avoidance does not make you safer. It just makes you less whole. And the person who is less whole, whose energy is divided between living and suppressing, is a person who can never bring their full capacity to anything they build. The Stoics approached this principle from a different angle, but arrived at the same truth. They practiced what Marcus Aurelius called the premeditation of adversity, deliberately sitting with difficult thoughts, uncomfortable possibilities, hard truths about their own behavior, not to suffer, but to understand, because the mind that has faced its discomfort honestly is not a weaker mind. It is a clearer one. Think about the last time you felt that restless, unsatisfied feeling. The one with no clear cause. Just a quiet sense that something is missing or off or not aligned with who you actually are. What did you do with it? Most people reach for something immediately, not as a conscious choice. The hand moves to the phone before the mind has registered what happened. The feeling disappears. Nothing was learned. The same feeling returns next week. The practice is simple and genuinely difficult. When that discomfort arrives, sit with it. Do not analyze it aggressively. Do not force a solution. Do not immediately reach for an explanation. Just let it exist for a few minutes without reaching for an exit, and ask it one question. What are you pointing at? Because discomfort is almost always pointing at something real. A conversation you have been avoiding, a boundary that keeps getting crossed, a decision you have been deferring because it feels too large, a dream you quietly shelved years ago that never fully went away, a version of yourself you keep glimpsing but never fully moving toward. That discomfort is not your enemy. It is a signal from the part of you that knows something is misaligned, and that has been trying to get your attention through every layer of distraction you have placed between yourself and it. The people who build genuinely purposeful lives are not people who feel no doubt or confusion. They are people who have learned to stay in the room with those feelings long enough to receive the information inside them. That is a learnable skill, and it starts with 5 minutes of not reaching for a distraction when the discomfort arrives. Start there. Just 5 minutes. What you find in those 5 minutes will be more useful than anything a distraction could give you. Rule 5. Redefine what success actually means to you. Let me describe something that happens more often than people admit. A person works hard for years. They achieve the things they aimed for. The salary, the title, the lifestyle that looks impressive from the outside. And then one day they are standing in the middle of all of it, and they feel nothing, or worse, they feel empty in a way that is difficult to explain to anyone else, because from the outside everything looks fine. The goal was reached. Why does it feel hollow? Psychologists call this the arrival fallacy, the mistaken belief that reaching a specific external milestone will produce lasting inner satisfaction. Research shows it almost never does, at least not for long, because the satisfaction was never really about the destination. It was about whether the direction was genuinely yours in the first place. Think about how most people define success. They did not choose the definition. It was handed to them by parents, by culture, by the peer group they grew up in, by the version of themselves at 20 years old who was more interested in being impressive than being fulfilled. And they have been building toward that definition ever since, without ever stopping to ask whether it belongs to them. The ladder was already leaning against a wall. They started climbing. Only years later, sometimes decades later, Did they realize the wall was not where they actually wanted to end up? The Stoics were ruthless on this point. Marcus Aurelius wrote constantly in the Meditations about the danger of living according to the values of others rather than one's own. He wrote, "How much time he gains who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks." He was not describing selfishness. He was describing the discipline of building a life from your own values outward, rather than from the expectations of others inward. Seneca wrote it even more directly. Most men ebb and flow in wretchedness between the fear of death and the hardships of life. They are unwilling to live, and yet they do not know how to die. The person living someone else's definition of success is doing exactly this, neither fully alive in their own life, nor able to release the version of it that does not fit. The rule requires real honesty, the kind that does not care about being practical or polite. Ask yourself, what does success actually look like to me? Not to the people who raised you, not to whoever you are trying to impress, not to the version of you that is most concerned with what other people think. To you, right now. What does a genuinely good day feel like? Not a perfect day, a good one, an ordinary one that leaves you feeling like your life is yours. What kind of work leaves you energized rather than depleted? What relationships feel like they actually fit who you are, not who you were performing to be? What would you be doing if no one was watching and no one was keeping score? Those answers are your real compass. Everything else, the external benchmarks, the societal expectations, the comparison to what others have built, that is noise you have learned to treat as signal. You can spend your whole life climbing a ladder that is leaning against the wrong wall. Or you can take an honest hour and ask whether the wall is where you actually want to end up. That hour is available to you right now. Take it. Rewrite the definition. Build from the inside out. Rule 6. Build a system, not just a dream. Here is the honest difference between people who actually change the direction of their lives and people who spend years intending to. It is not talent. It is not luck. It is not even motivation. It is whether they built a system. Inspiration is real. A video, a conversation, a book that shifts the way you see things. Those moments matter, but inspiration without structure has a very short shelf life. Give it 72 hours. The emotional spike fades, the old routines reassert themselves, and nothing is actually different. A system is what takes the inspiration and turns it into behavior that persists when motivation is gone, and motivation will always, eventually, be gone. That is not a weakness. That is simply how human psychology functions. Nobody feels motivated every day. The question is what happens on the days you do not. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." A system is how you do that. It is how the present moment, this hour, this day, becomes the actual arena where your direction is built. Not in the future, not when things settle down. Now. So what does a direction system actually look like? Let me make it specific. First, a protected time block, not a vague plan, an actual slot in your actual day that belongs to the thing you are building, even 30 minutes, even 20. But protected, consistent, not rescheduled unless something is genuinely on fire. The appointment you make with yourself and keep is the single most powerful signal you can send to your own mind that this matters, that you are serious, that you will not be talked out of it by the business of the day. Second, a weekly review, a brief, honest moment at the end of each week where you ask yourself 2 questions. What did I do this week that moved me toward my direction? And what got in the way? Not as self-criticism, as data. Information you can use to adjust the following week. This is the Stoic daily review applied at the weekly scale. The mechanism that prevents the slow drift that turns weeks into months and months into another year of intentions that did not become actions. Third, remove the repeated decision. If you have to decide every morning whether today is the day you work on your direction, you will eventually decide it is not. Willpower is a finite resource. Do not spend it on choices that should already be made. Set the default. Make the appointment non-negotiable. Remove the question from the table. so the energy goes entirely to the execution. Fourth, protect the system from what doesn't belong. A good system is not just about what you add to your life. It is equally about what you protect your time and energy from. Learn to say no, not just to large demands, but to the small time eaters that feel harmless individually and add up to hours stolen from what actually matters. The Stoics called this the discipline of ascent, the practice of examining what you allow into your life before it enters, rather than trying to remove it after it has already taken root. A purposeful life is not built in flashes of inspiration. It is built in the ordinary hours that most people never think twice about. The 30 minutes before the day gets busy, the quiet block in the afternoon when the noise settles, the consistent appointment with yourself that you kept, even when it was imperfect, even when what you produced was small, even when you did not feel like it. Build the system. Show up to it imperfectly. Adjust it when it breaks. Show up again. That is the whole process, and it is the only process that actually produces lasting change. Rule 7. Commit to the long game without an escape clause. This is the final rule, and I want to be direct with you about it. You could apply the first 6 rules genuinely and still not get where you want to go if you apply them with one foot already pointed toward the exit. Here is what that looks like. A lot of people do not actually commit to a direction. What they do is try a direction. They give it a few months with an unspoken mental agreement. If it gets too hard, if results don't come fast enough, if something better appears on the horizon, I will leave. They call this being flexible, being smart, not putting all their eggs in one basket. Sometimes that is genuine wisdom, but most of the time it is something else entirely. It is a way of protecting yourself from ever having to fully show up, because if you never fully commit, you can never fully fail. If there is always a back door, you never have to risk walking through the front one completely. And the cost of that protection is enormous, because a direction you have not truly committed to does not get the full weight of your energy. It does not get your best thinking. It does not get the kind of sustained, deep effort that is the only thing capable of producing real results over time. It gets a version of you that is always half present, one eye always watching the exit. Seneca wrote that courage is not about being unafraid of danger. It is about deciding there is no safe alternative. And when you truly decide that, when you close the back door completely, something shifts in how your mind operates. You stop asking, should I be doing this, and start asking, how do I do this better? You stop looking for reasons to leave and start looking for ways to grow. You stop treating every difficulty as potential evidence that you chose wrong and start treating it as the training ground where your commitment is deepened. Think about someone you know who has built something real over a long period of time. A business, a skill, a relationship, a body of work. I guarantee that at some point, probably multiple points, they had a compelling reason to walk away. Something went wrong. Results were slower than expected. Something easier and shinier appeared on the horizon. The difference between them and the person who quit is not that they never felt that pull. They felt it, probably strongly. The difference is that they had already decided the back door was not an option. So when the hard moment arrived, they did not consult the exit. They got to work. The Stoics called this the discipline of commitment, the daily, deliberate renewing of the decision to remain on the path. Not because the path is always clear, not because every day feels meaningful, but because the person you are becoming on this path is worth more than the comfort of having an escape route. Commitment does not mean the path never changes. The path often changes. You will learn things that redirect you. Circumstances will shift. What does not change is your relationship to the path, your fundamental choice to engage with your life fully rather than audition for it from a safe distance. In the months that remain in this year, make a real decision, not a trial run, not an experiment with a predetermined exit built into the design. A decision that you will follow this direction, learn from what it teaches you, adjust when you must, and show up completely, regardless of how the week is going, regardless of whether the results are visible yet. regardless of what else appears on the horizon. That is the only way the first 6 rules accumulate into something lasting. Commit fully, no back door, no safety net of half effort, just the direction you chose, and the version of yourself that is being built by the choosing. The 7 rules. One direction. Let us bring all 7 together, because this is where they become more than a list. This is where they become a way of living. Rule 1. Stop waiting for clarity and move. Clarity is not found. It is built through action. Rule 2. Remove the drains before you add. You cannot build on a leaking foundation. Rule 3. Build the identity first. Become the person who does the thing, and the doing will follow. Rule 4. Sit with discomfort. The information you need is inside the feeling you keep escaping. Rule 5. Redefine success on your own terms. Make sure the ladder is leaning against a wall that is actually yours. Rule 6. Build a system. Direction without structure is just a wish with a deadline. Rule 7. Commit fully. No back door. The long game requires your whole presence. These 7 rules, practiced together, produce something that the Stoics spent their entire philosophical tradition trying to articulate. A life that is being lived, not merely survived. A life oriented towards something that genuinely matters to the person living it. Not perfect, not free of difficulty or doubt or confusion, but directed, deliberately, with the full weight of a committed mind behind every choice. The German poet Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote to a young person who was confused and searching. He said, "Live the questions now. Perhaps then someday, far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Live the questions, move toward what matters, build the system, stay committed." That is the work. It is not glamorous every day, but it is yours, and it is worth it. Before we close today, I want to add one final thought, because it connects everything we have discussed to the most important question of all. Every rule in this video ultimately comes back to a single choice that you make and remake each day. The choice between the life that is happening to you and the life you are deliberately building. Most people experience their life as something that happens to them. The circumstances arrive, the reactions follow, the weeks pass, and direction, if it exists at all, is more the result of momentum than intention. The Stoics built an entire philosophy around the rejection of that position. They insisted, with clarity and with urgency, that the human being is not a passive recipient of circumstance, that reason, intention, and will are real forces, and that the person who cultivates them deliberately is a fundamentally different kind of actor in their own life than the person who does not. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The realization is not passive. It is not a thought you have once and carry with you. It is a practice, daily, deliberate, renewed each morning before the world makes its demands. These 7 rules are that practice. Begin today, not when the year turns, not when the circumstances improve. Today, with exactly what you have, exactly where you are. If these 7 rules resonated with you, if something in this video landed and shifted something in your thinking, then the Master Your Mind program was built for exactly this next step. Inside, you will find the complete framework for applying these principles to your specific life, your goals, your patterns, your particular version of the drift and the direction. The program gives you the philosophical depth, the daily practices, and the structured support to turn these ideas from inspiration into permanent transformation. The link is in the description. When you are ready to build the direction that lasts, it is there. And if this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and stay committed to the path of self-mastery. Every single day on Master Your Mind, we bring you the ancient wisdom that builds stronger, wiser, more unshakable human beings. This is not passive viewing. This is training. I will see you in the next video.